great week of great vibes here at the Star. The Dallas Cowboys getting ready for their midterm exam, the second test of the season so far, taking on the top dogs of the NFC, the Philadelphia Eagles. But before we get to that, we've got to take a look back at the week. Following a 43-20 blowout win over the Rams in Week 8, I'm Nicole Hutchison, your host for Cowboys Rewind. Let's start things off with the obvious. The NFL trade deadline was Tuesday, October 31st at 3 p.m., but this is something the Cowboys owner Jerry Jones made clear up until Tuesday morning, that he was not going to make the trade, but if it was worth trading for, they'd consider it. But they weren't going to be aggressive and go out and get any new additions. He loves the team where it's at with the personnel that it has, and there were some mixed emotions here at the Star. Let's take a listen to some thoughts on a few of our podcasts this week.
I don't really get all that caught up in it. I think there's some subtle moves they could have made, but the thing about it is, for the most part, to me, all the players who were added to other teams, most of them are what? They got flaws. So they were traded for a reason. They were traded for third and fourth round picks. Like Chase Young, my Buckeye brother. Okay, he's a guy with potential, but it's not like he's done anything, because if he did anything, guess what?
He wouldn't be traded.
They'd be trying to sign him.
Right.
Now, you know, some guys you hope we're getting because maybe they can make a play at some point to help us win a game. It's not that this is a perfect team, but I'm just not all bent out of shape because they didn't do anything.
It's a double-edged sword for me. I think you don't want to do something just for the sake of doing something. The same way we talk about this with coaches being fired or changing players and stuff. You don't want to do it just for the sake of change. You got to have something better on the horizon. And like JJT said, I don't know if that was necessarily out there in bunches. I do think they could have upgraded at different positions. But at the same time, another thing you have to consider is that this is a team that drafts really well. And you see this with Micah Parsons' contract coming up, CeeDee Lamb coming up, Trayvon just signed. All these guys in-house, Dak Prescott they signed. So they should be a little bit more reluctant to just give out their premium draft picks for a rental. So I think I see it both ways. At some point, you do want to go all in the way the Rams did a few years ago. But again, that's not their way. That's not their way of doing things. And also, the last thing for me on that is, it wasn't a mid-season trade, but Brandon Cooks and Stephon Gilmore were both trade acquisitions. They did make moves to upgrade the roster. It was just at a different time.
I don't know if there's like a specific human I would go after, but I would say, you know, there are some positions, like, I understand. I think I heard Jerry mention today, and we take everything he says with a grain of salt. Is that he said that, you know, he expects for the tight end position to pick up. It's gonna need to. If you really felt like this tight end room was enough, I think Ferg is. I know we're gonna talk about it later. Watching film on him and Dak, like, you can really see that they're starting to gain a connection, but you're not getting really anything else from your tight end room. I wouldn't have mind to see, you know, maybe them bring in someone. It sounds like the Commanders is giving out people for $2. So. We could have talked to them about something. Everybody else did. So it's just
$2 is crazy.
$2
is crazy.
I mean, a lot of these guys that they're letting go are
$2 in a bag
first round
of chips.
picks. They're first round picks, and they're letting them go for day 3 picks. I mean, and I understand the Cowboys are in a tight spot just because of the amount of picks they have left this year, and et cetera, et cetera. But some of the picks that people gave up in drafts, and trades earlier before. These are like 2025 picks and stuff too. So I don't know, man. I'm really torn. I know Cowboys Nation is down just because of it, but it's, like I said, we can't want it more than they want it. And if they don't feel like it's necessary, it is what it is.
No new additions, but the Cowboys are playing their best ball right now with the pieces on this team. But we're going to take a look back at this offense and their record-breaking performance in Week 8 when we come back. Stick with us.
Cowboys Rewind is brought to you by AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys, and by SWBC Mortgage. Join the more than 120,000 customers that we've helped to find their happier way home. Visit swbcmortgage.com to find a pro today. This segment is brought to you by Ashley, the official furniture store of the Dallas Cowboys.
The Dallas Cowboys are 5-2 in the season with a win in Week 8, 3-0 at home. And the Cowboys' 3 home wins, they've outscored their opponents 111-33, but this one was the best. A season-high 43 points, Dak Prescott and this offense feeling groovy. And if you forgot, here's a replay of Prescott and the boys putting on a show last Sunday.
Prescott's in the gun again. Pollard on his right. Back to throw, looking right, deep to the end zone. Leaping catch for Jake Ferguson. Touchdown Cowboys to start the game. Prescott back, time looking, throwing it into the end zone to CeeDee Lamb. Rams are going to rush 4. Prescott runs up out of the pocket and runs right, looking downfield, throw into the end zone, touchdown. CeeDee Lamb. From his 46, Prescott, deep ball, left side, Lamb at the 32.
Prescott was 25 of 31 passing for 304 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception. He became the second Cowboy of all time with 22 games of more than 300 passing yards. He hit 9 different guys. The Cowboys finished with 11 explosive plays, the most this season. It was Dak's first game this year with more than 3 passing touchdowns. Let's hear what offensive coordinator had to say about his QB1's game this year.
I think, coming off of the last 2 games, the one thing you would see is the decision making, how quick and decisive he's getting through his reads. I look at the touchdown to Jake Ferguson, which I think was the first one. We saw coverage we were anticipating. You had Fergie match up on the backer. The backer kind of turned his back, but the throw was unbelievable. The catch was unbelievable. But if you go back and you look at the little things, you look at his footwork. It's what we call plant footwork. So he's taking his drop, he sees the look, and really before even Ferg gets on top, he just puts his foot in the ground, he throws it to the perfect spot. Cool thing in that regard, right? I get asked every week about the tight ends. A couple of tight ends have maybe missed those plays. Like we missed one to Scooney a couple weeks ago, maybe the Patriots or something, right? But Fergie makes an unbelievable catch. But just the decision-making and how confident he is with reading his movement keys, getting through his progressions. And I've always said, literally, and Babe could probably speak to this, but you should be able to watch a quarterback's lower body to know how well he's seeing the game, because his feet tell you everything. If his feet are firm and in rhythm and, he's just, taking tight hitches and stuff like that, he's seeing things well. If he's kind of loose on his back foot or he's taking a lot of hitches, then there tends to be, oh, man, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do. So if you look at Dak's feet right now, he's playing with a lot of confidence and being very decisive.
Well, it was only right to bring in Kyle Yeomans this morning to go ahead and kick it with Kyle. Dallas Cowboys TV host and reporter as well. Now, Kyle, how much of this win I feel like we've seen the best of this offense so far through this season. Not the best just yet, but how much of this win was them finally just being who they want to be?
I think that was a big part of it because this is a team that needed to find some offensive rhythm, and they didn't have that through the first 6 games of the year. It took until Game 7. And I think they saw glimpses of it in the win before the bye week against the Chargers. Dak Prescott rolling out, using his mobility to either escape pressure or just extend the play and find a receiver downfield. It was the fact that they saw maybe a glimpse of that and said, okay, this is something we can rely on again with Prescott at quarterback. So the more that Dak can use his legs, the more that he can maneuver around the pocket, I think the better. You saw that against the Rams, and it turned into big-time plays downfield.
And he had some help from his offensive line. Not from the start, but eventually.
That first drive was rocky.
First drive was rocky, but eventually we saw that cohesiveness, kind of that growth in that cohesiveness. What did you think of Richards just stepping in for Chuma, and you see tiring out as well? What did you think of his play?
Yeah, and we might have to see it again this week against the Eagles at the same time. But I liked what we saw from Awesome Richards. I thought the rookie out of North Carolina jumped into a last-second ditch effort. It wasn't the best front 7 in football that he was going up against in the Rams. The Rams, outside of Aaron Donald, really haven't had a ton of pressure putting pressure on opposing quarterbacks. So he was able to work up and do a good job of getting to that second level. I liked the comfortable aspect to his game. He looked like he was made for that moment to be able to step in. It wasn't an easy transition, but he made it look easy at times. So something to be positive about going into this matchup, even if Tyron Smith is unavailable. You still have Austin Richards backing up Chuma Edoga in that left tackle spot. It's going to be challenged more here against the Eagles than it was against the Rams, but certainly something to look forward to.
Yeah, well, you're obviously looking to get CD involved as well, Cooks involved, get that running game going as well. It's going to be tough, a tough challenge, but nothing the Cowboys aren't ready for. We've got more coming up for you here on Cowboys Rewind. We'll be right back.
This segment was brought to you by Ashley, the official furniture store of the Dallas Cowboys.
Everything happens for a reason. Just gotta, just roll with the punches. It's all in God's plan. Just gotta get healthy, come back stronger, faster, and just try this again next year.
Trayvon Diggs sat in on meetings this week, and he was in the locker room to support his teammates ahead of the big-time NFC East divisional matchup against Philly. The first he's spoken to the media since his ACL surgery. He's in much better spirits, but without him for the rest of the season, the Dallas Cowboys have had a few guys help make up for that production. Second-year cornerback Donon Brown, one of the big-time playmakers in this Rams win. He became the franchise leader in pick-6 returns for a touchdown in a season. Picked up his third against the Rams. I'm going to hand it over to the guys on the break on their thoughts on Brown's impact on this defense.
It really, all the things you just said about him, I think the best play he made was the tackle on Cooper Kupp on the goal line.
There we go.
Yep.
Third and 10.
You could say all the things that he did in that football game. He saved you 4 points there. That was a 4-point tackle that he made right there, because Cooper Kupp's going to score.
Yeah, he's walking in.
They've got that thing blocked.
He's walking in.
And he somehow gets around the tackle, Jackson. It's like he knifes low, and Kupp tries to get up the field and tackles him for a 2-yard gain. He didn't make that play. It's a 7-all game. But to me, that's the kind of thing when you start to talk about coverage and carrying routes inside and interceptions and all that. That's, to me, what makes a corner rare. His ability to have the awareness to tackle, to make big plays. Their job is to cover and do those things, but you get somebody that physically plays in the game like that, that's a rare player.
But even better, I should say, better still, is the fact that his motor doesn't turn down as the lead turns up. The Cowboys had a big lead, so that was a magnificent play. But he had another one, the PBU on Tutu Atwell, going across the field. I don't know if people understand the speed of Tutu Atwell, and then him streaking. He wasn't
anybody named Tutu.
Right, well, there you go. Right? And he wasn't dragging Bland across the field. Bland was hip to hip with him and able to make that play. And that's the kind of play that the Cowboys love to see when it comes to like Mamba mentality. Yeah, you're up big, but there's no taking plays off for these guys, particularly a guy like Bland, who, like you said, only the 29th player in NFL history to have 3 pick-6s, only the first player in Cowboys franchise history to hit that designation. And there's still 10 games left to play in this regular season for him to get 4. Exactly. So seeing what he did, and then quiet as it's kept, Gilmore, Jordan Lewis, here's what they were able to do against Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, 2 of the biggest threats coming into this game. Those 2 combined for 54 receiving yards. The leading receiver for the Rams was Darrell Henderson with 54. I mean, for the running
he had the
back.
one big pass.
The
Dallas
32 yards.
Dallas
I think it
had
was 34.
defended the screen yet.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
That's exactly right.
Well,
Get ready
even
for
being in the
Philadelphia.
press box, not hearing those names that we talked about getting into the.
Was the volume on in the press box? I didn't notice the guy talking very much.
Yeah.
It kind of went off there at later in the game.
Up and down.
Well, something happened, but either way, like you weren't hearing any of the big names from the Rams at all.
Bland's been lights out, and so has the consistency on special teams. Brandon Aubrey tied the NFL record of made field goals. He's now a perfect 18 for 18. And defensive end Sam Williams at gunner, a 261-pound defensive end, blocked a punt for a safety on Sunday. You got to have crazy athleticism and speed to do that. The girls on Girls Talk, Boys Talk had a lot to say on the consistent production that units made.
I asked him, how did this whole thing come up with you? How did you end up being in this gunner position, or what happened? And he said, well, I was joking with Bones at first, a while back saying, hey, I want to try that. I can do that. And Bones was like, yeah, okay. You can try it at some point. And he was like, yeah, no, like, I'm serious. I want to try that. So then when CJ Goodwin went down and there was kind of an opportunity for other guys to fill in and shuffle in, Sam went back to Bones like, I could do that. And Bones was like, all right, go try it. And then he said that after they kind of tried a few reps, Bones came back to him and was like, yeah, you can do that. All right, let's continue and see where this goes. So Sam said when it happened, it wasn't something that was planned and specifically designed for him. And Bones said that as well earlier in the coordinator meetings in the week. And I asked Sam, I said, so how do you feel about this new opportunity? Is it, it's not something you've necessarily done before, but what's the biggest factor in it? And he said, my speed. My speed really gets to come to light when I'm doing this. Yeah. And then I asked him, I said, so going forward, if you get more opportunities, what's kind of the biggest thing, or what's the last thing, your typical reporter interview, what's the last thing you want to add about it? And he said, you better double team me if I'm playing gunner. So
making the most of opportunities. Kevontae Turpin's time on offense has been limited, but he's been making the most of his time as well on special teams. Just shy of a kick return for a touchdown. It was called back for holding against the Cowboys, but it's time to talk Cowboys and Eagles. We've got Nick Harris joining the show right after the break. You don't want to miss it. It's Philly week for the Dallas Cowboys. They're looking to hopefully pass their second test of the season. I'm joined by the one and only Nick Harris to break down this Philadelphia Eagles-Dallas Cowboys matchup. Now, Nick, when you look at back in May when the schedule was released, the road games, right, the 49ers stood out, and, of course, the Eagles stood out as well. They didn't pass that first test of the season, but they've got this one a kind of chance to redeem themselves. What does this Cowboys team offensively, let's start there, have to do?
Yeah, it's always a big matchup divisionally whenever you travel up to Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia. Dak Prescott talked about it earlier in the week, how it's an environment he relishes playing in. He compared it to the SEC back when he was playing at Mississippi State. But talking about offensively, we'll stay with Dak Prescott. He's going to have to be surgical in this game, and I think the success is going to be found outside of the numbers. That's where this offense has been able to succeed so far this season in this Texas Coast system with Mike McCarthy. And the guy that I look at in helping Dak Prescott succeed is CeeDee Lamb, obviously, coming off of a career day. 12 receptions, 158 yards against the Rams. Let's see a repeat performance of that in Philadelphia, right?
Yeah, let's hope so. But let's also talk about this offensive line, right? You're facing a #1 run defense in the league. Do you feel like this offensive unit is ready for that challenge?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a challenge. And even if Tyron Smith is healthy and placed at left tackle, it'll be only the third game that they've been able to play all 5 up front together. So there's definitely going to be some juggling going on. I think if Tyron is not healthy, you have Chuma Edoga, who's also battling an injury. Does Awesome Richards get inserted in? I know you guys have talked about it a little bit, but there's a lot of questions up front. But if all 5 can stay firm up front, you have Tyler Biadasz, you have Zach Martin and Tyler Smith, who have been playing really good football over the last couple of weeks. They're going to have to stand tall against the weapons that they have up front for Philly.
Switch it over to this defensive side of the ball. I mean, obviously they have weapons, right? As far as the Eagles, A.J. Brown and Donon Brown, that matchup's going to be pretty interesting. I think that's the matchup that stands out the most. How difficult will it be for him to slow down a guy like A.J. Brown?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it won't necessarily just be Donon Brown in his own favor. You got Stephon Gilmore and you got the safeties on the back end that are going to be able to help quite a bit in zone coverage. But you look at A.J. Brown, and the thing that stands out to me about what his production has been over the last 6 weeks, it's how the other offensive weapons have helped set him up. You have DeAndre Swift in the running game now in Philadelphia. It's really opened up opportunities for A.J. Brown. Jalen Hurts is taking more chances, and on the other end, it's kind of forcing him to make some turnovers. But on the positive end for Philly, it's allowing A.J. Brown to have 125-plus yards in 6 straight games. So if you're Dallas, you really just want things to be able to wrap up, and you want to be able to make things difficult for A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts.
I need a quick score prediction. Go.
38-35 Eagles. I'm sorry, but that's kind of how I feel about it. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. If this was at AT&T Stadium, I'd feel differently.
All right, well, you heard them. We'll be right back to wrap things up right here on Cowboys Rewind. Stick with us. 3 road opponents stood out the most when you looked at the schedule release come May, and of course you had the San Francisco 49ers in October, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Buffalo Bills in December. The Cowboys failed the first test against the 49ers, losing that game 42-10. who have, by the way, have lost 3 straight since beating the Cowboys, sitting right below them in the NFC standings. But now it's time for that second test. The Eagles out in Philadelphia, the top dogs in the NFC, sitting at 7-1. It's always a good old school rivalry between these two. Since 1961, the Cowboys lead the all-time series 73-55. In the last 10 matchups, they've won 7 of them. This time, just feels a little different, regular season or not. The Cowboys have won 11 straight home games. Their last 4 losses have been on the road. This is a chance for the boys to translate their success at home on the road and the chance to prove they belong on the field with the NFC's elite. We've got a big-time matchup on Sunday, 3:25 kickoff in Lincoln Financial Field. You don't want to miss it. We'll see you next week here on Cowboys Rewind.
Cowboys Rewind was brought to you by AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys, and by SWBC Mortgage. Join the more than 120,000 customers that we've helped to find their happier way home. Visit swbcmortgage.com to find a pro today.